So if we go back to this concept of energy, and I'd heard very early on, everything is energy, and this is from science. And it's just a saying that you take on at that time. Everything is energy. Now, many years later, I can truly say, yeah, everything is energy, because I've got a completely different concept of it. And we as humans are energy systems, just like, say, a machine uses, your car uses energy in the form of petrol or diesel or now electricity. And doesn't matter how much energy you have, if that energy is not flowing, so if the petrol isn't flowing through the car because something's stuck in the pipes or whatever, if the electricity isn't flowing because the battery is flat or there's something resistance in the way, then that energy is useless. With humans, we have an energy system. And that energy, we have several energy systems, but the primary one that I'm talking about is the emotional energy system, our feelings, how we feel. It's an actual energy system. And if it's not flowing, we as humans don't function as well, just like the car or just like the electrical appliance, if the energy isn't flowing. So everything is energy. I would go on to say everything needs energy in order to operate. And the more that energy flows, the more efficient it is. So what do I say about humans? The more our energy flows, the more we can live what I call successful lives. Because without that energy flowing, all it leads to is difficulties and stress and unhappiness and all the other stuff that limits us as humans.
Okay, so what happens to our energy if it's in a negative space?
So first, if I kind of clarify this thing about negative and positive, that there is a switch that occurs, and negative and positive are useful terms to describe what we're about, but in reality there isn't a negative or positive. There's just a different frequency that applies, and negative is low frequency, and we know it's negative because fundamentally we feel crap. The lower it is, the more crap we feel, if I just keep it that simple. Doesn't matter what the feeling is, what we name it, or what we say is causing it, it just doesn't feel nice. The more positive something is, the better we feel inside, the more happy we feel, the more energy we have to go and do something in life. So that's where this thing about positive and negative applies. It's just a useful way of describing it, but the reality is it's not positive and negative. The energy doesn't care about positive and negative. It's just a different frequency of energy.
Okay. So if you're on a low frequency of energy, how would one typically be operating? How would it feel? What would your results be like?
Okay, so if I describe it in this way, the lowest level in terms of emotional energy is where we feel apathy. Apathy is a range of emotions, and in apathy, there is a sense inside of what's the point? Why bother? I mean, it's like it's a waste of time anyway. And so from that place, we literally do nothing. We're sitting there waiting for life to be over, to pass us by, because there's such little energy that we physically can't get out of bed in the morning. And people who are in apathy quite often describe that. So depression, which is prescribed for more and more, quite widely as something that medicine can cure, is just a low energy level. But when you're depressed, you don't feel like doing anything. You feel low. You feel despondent. You feel basically unhappy, and you don't even feel like you belong there, as in life. So that's at the low energy. And then a higher energy actually is grief. And people think, well, grief's really bad because we associate grief with losing somebody. But grief isn't just losing somebody, it could be losing anything. So it's the energy of loss or the energy of suspected loss, future loss. So if we think we're going to lose something, even though it's not yet happened, we can start to feel grief. And in grief, the sense is, I'm lost. I don't know what to do. I feel really bad. I know somebody can help me, but I don't know what to do. But that sense of somebody can help me is better than what's the point, which was the energy of apathy. And then moving on from grief at the higher frequency is fear. And fear is very easy to imagine for most people because we've all been in fear. And in fear, there are three responses. We either freeze in fear, i.e., literally it's the deer in the headlights or the rabbit in the kind of just staring, not knowing what to do, which way to jump or run. Or it could be the energy of flight, which is run away from the suspected problem or the thing that we're afraid of. Or the opposite is running straight into it and confronting it. Freezing out of the three is the lowest level of fear. Flight, at least you're moving now rather than not moving. In apathy, there's no movement. In grief, there's no movement, but there's the possibility of movement. In freeze, there's still no movement, but there's a sense of if I knew what to do, I'd do it. In flight, now you're beginning to move for the first time. At least you're running away rather than just sitting there waiting for the car to hit you. Or you're actually fighting. So you kind of the analogy of the car isn't a good one because you can't fight the car. But if it's a person you're afraid of, instead of running away, you face them, and that could be much better for you. So it's a higher energy. And then moving on from fear, we go into the energy of lust or wanting. So I'm not just talking about the sexual lust. I'm talking about the energy of actually wanting something so badly that we're willing to get up and do something to get it. And that's a higher energy than not, what's the point? Why bother to, somebody can help me. I don't know what or how, but somebody can help me to fight, fight or freeze. It's kind of a better level. At least you're willing to go towards something now. And that's the energy of lust. But if you get stuck there, it's still a low energy because in order to achieve your goals, in order to have something, you need to move into high energies. But from that place of wanting something, you start to do something. You start to take action rather than no action. And in that action, you start to move towards and you work hard. And then you're, because it's a low energy, you're still not getting the result for the amount of energy that you put out. So the energy going out is more than the energy of something coming in. And from that place, you start to get a bit irritated and frustrated. I'm working, I'm doing all this work and I'm still not getting the results. You get more frustrated with it. And so you work even harder. And it's still not quite the same because you're still putting out more energy than there's energy coming back to you. And you start to get angry and you start to lash out. And so you work even harder. And just through what I call sheer bloody hard work, you start to get the result. And then you get the next level of energy, which is the energy of pride. And people say, what's wrong with pride? Nothing. Pride, at least you're beginning to feel good now instead of the crap you were feeling in apathy to, all the levels. You start to feel a bit better. But there's still a bit of fear left in pride, which is, well, I've achieved it, but I don't know if I can do it again, so I'm going to protect it. And so the very thing that got you to be successful, you stop doing to protect the success you had, and that backfires, and then you start to lose the success. So you kind of work yourself up to having something decent, and then you start to lose it. And this is where a lot of business people fall. So through the energy of wanting lust and anger and pride, they can create great business, but then they start to lose the business because they've achieved it, they're successful, but then they start to become protective around that success. And there is a higher level. And now we're moving to what we call from the negative to the positive. And people say, well, why is pride negative? Because there's still a bit of a holdback in pride. Overall, that pride is beginning to give you more energy, but there's still more energy going out than coming in, although there's more energy coming in. And the next level is courage. And in courage, you start to do the things that you do, not because you're not afraid. Courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is the presence of fear and still willing to do what you need to do. And that's the difference. You're willing to do something even though there's fear present. And so you start to take the action from a higher level of energy, which means the result is different. And I worked with people who moved from pride to courage, not doing anything different, just doing it from a different energy, and their results just come to them much more quickly because now there's more energy coming back than being put out. So the energy you're using up in the action is less than the energy that's coming back to you from the results. And so you feel better about you because there's the energy in the system is building up. And then you move on to the next level, which is acceptance, and then to the next level, which is peace. And you can keep on going up. But at all of these levels, there's more energy coming back to you than you're actually putting out. So there is a net increase in energy. In the negativity, there's a net decrease in energy, and eventually you run out of energy and you crash. Whereas you can increase infinitely, but you can only decrease to a limited point. So that's my view on why this is so important in life, in living life, in enjoying, in having happiness, in fulfillment, or the catch-all just feeling crap about where you are and what you're doing.
Okay, so with regards to energy and thinking about it from one of your programs, why does being around other people on, coaching calls, group sessions, etc., why does that help an individual's energy?
Okay, so energy just isn't limited to us; it's everywhere, and it's been proven through experiments. This has been medically proven by studies that were done by the Heart Math Institute in America, where you have two people that are within, kind of a hand's distance of each other, so within 3 feet of each other or a meter of each other, the energy of each one of them affects the other person. So if you're surrounded by a number of people close to you who are all in a lower energy than you, they'll drag you down. If you're surrounded by people that are in a higher energy than you, they'll literally drag you up. So when people meet live on these programs and they're surrounded by people who initially may be in a low energy but change their energy into a higher energy, even if you don't want to, you get dragged into a higher energy. So you start feeling good even though you don't want to feel good, and that's weird because you want to hold on to it. I'm feeling really bad, and the reality is you start to feel better.
Interesting.
Because
And
I don't know about you, but I sometimes when I'm feeling bad, like just leave me alone. And even though you're kind of feeling miserable, you start to feel better, and that's freaky.
yeah, no, totally. And how does that work on an online session? So you're saying about people being 3 feet away from each other.
Yeah,
How does that work on like a Zoom or webinar type?
I really didn't believe this would work until the pandemic lockdowns. And then I saw the result in front of me where people that I'd never ever met in life, that were not just a few feet away, but hundreds of miles away from me, or thousands sometimes, were getting better. And somebody uh, who is more science-based than me said, well, actually, energy isn't limited by any of the structures of humans. So our body is limited to this shape here, but energy flows everywhere. And the HeartMath study shows that it flows beyond the body. And you have modalities like Reiki, which are a bit woo-woo for people. They don't work. But actually, though, again, in experiments, scientific experiments, they've shown that people who are prayed for, who are in hospital and ill, if they are prayed for by people that they don't even know, so it's this double blind. So the person who is praying doesn't know who they're praying for, which is the person in the hospital. The person in the hospital isn't aware they're being prayed for. Those people in hospital tended to spend less time in hospital than the people who weren't being prayed for. And you think, well, how does this work? It's because energy has no boundary. That's a very simple explanation. The energy of the sun reaches us 93 million miles or whatever the distance is. We don't say, well, how can it reach us? It just keeps on traveling as far as it goes until it meets something. So energy will keep on traveling. And there is a way in which this works. to be honest, can I explain how it works? No, but I can see the results of it, and I've been seeing them for 25 years, enough for me to believe that actually sometimes we don't need to understand how something works. It still works.
And I can definitely say that I recognise the online program that you run and how much benefit that does have. Having been in a bad place, gone onto the program, and come out of it in a better place. And I know that certainly when I speak to you, even on the phone or via Zoom or whatever it is, I always leave with a sense of calm. And I think that has something to do with your energy as well, and kind of where you are when you're doing your sessions, how that somehow translates to me. And
Uh,
I don't know why.
well, if I'm honest, when I went through my bad phase in life many years ago, and I was depressed and I was miserable, guess what? Nobody wanted to be around me.
Mm.
And I got even worse because nobody wanted to be around me. They didn't know how to even help me because I was in apathy.
Mm.
Like, what's the point? Why do anything? Because nobody can help me. Or is it any surprise nobody wanted to be around me because they were trying to help me and I wasn't even taking any of that on? Whereas now, having gone through what I've gone through and applied what I learned to change my own life, I'm in a better place where actually people want to be around me. And that, when it first happened, was strange because I was used to people not wanting to be around me to suddenly there are people around me.
Mm. And I think we see that as well, visually in a room full of people. If you walk into a party or an event, and there are some people that just sort of people drift towards, they almost are magnetic. And we have no way of describing that other than that person's really electric or that person's really interesting. And I think sometimes if we sit back and think about it, there are probably moments in our own life where we recognise that there are times where there's people we're drawn to.
Yeah, and it happens at the events because invariably I know roughly what people are going through when they first come in because I get to speak to most people. But the other people, the other delegates, won't know.
Mm.
And the ones who are going through something bad, which is leaving them in a place where they're feeling really miserable, initially they'll sit down and nobody will sit around them until there's no choice because there aren't any other chairs left. Then they'll go and sit next to them. Whereas the people who are there because they're in a good place and they just want to get to even better than that, people are flocking around them.
Mm.
When you come across this, it all seems a bit woo-woo and weird, but that's the way it is.
Mm. Okay. um, so if I'm sitting here thinking, yeah, this all makes sense. I get the concept of energy and how it flows between people. Um, what do I do to get into a higher energy?
There are certain things, techniques you can use, and it doesn't matter whether you understand them or not. It doesn't matter whether you understand how your metabolism works or not on a general basis. You can still function in life. It doesn't matter if you don't understand, you don't have a clue how electricity works. If you're willing to press that button from off to on, it works. Same with these techniques. You have to suspend your judgment. And what do I mean by that? So imagine going to the movie theater. You're going to see the latest blockbuster, and perhaps it's a science fiction film. I use that as an example because I like science fiction. And you walk in, you know what's happening. It's just a projection on a screen, and there's speakers and there's sound. But whilst that movie is going on, you're completely and utterly hooked into that movie. You're feeling what the characters are feeling on the screen. When they're terrified, you're terrified. When they're happy, you're happy. And yet you still know it's just an image being projected on a white screen. So you've suspended your judgment of it's just, you don't sit there all the while thinking, this is just an image on a screen. You get involved with it. And then when you walk back out, you can pick up your judgment and go, oh, well, that movie was a crap and this, or you can say that movie was good and whatever your impression was, but you can pick up whatever you left of this. Just experience it. And then when you walk out, you have the choice to either carry on with that belief or ditch it. But if it works for you, if you feel happier, Why would you ditch it? And people don't, they carry on. So you have to suspend it enough. So be uh, skeptical, but have an openness. If you're skeptical and closed-minded, it's not going to work. Just save your money. Don't do anything. Why bother?
Mm.
If I'm blunt, if you're miserable and you want to stay that way, because I don't have the right to say to you, feel better. But if you're feeling miserable and you want to do something about it because you believe something can be done, you may not know what to do, but you can, somebody can help you out of this. But turn up with an open-mindedness to allow this thing to work, because open-minded and closed-minded are part of the energy spectrum. If you're closed-minded, you're in a low energy, and there's no way it's going to work. And if you're in apathy, it doesn't matter what anybody does. Nobody can help you. Nobody can make it happen for you. I may be very good at what I do, but I can't make it happen for you. I can teach you. I can't carry you. I can hold your hand and lead you, but I can't carry you. Nobody else can do that either. So it's the difference between open-minded and closed-minded. And what is the difference? The difference is just a decision. How badly do you want to get better from where you are? Could life be better? If the answer to that is yes, then surely it's worth being open-minded just for a few hours of the seminar.
Mm.
And then you can do whatever you want to once you leave the room.
And with energy, how do I maintain that feeling? What does it feel like? So in a higher energy, what does the world feel like? Like, what does my life feel like? How different will it be?
There's an openness. There's a sense of wanting to be around and do something because it makes you feel good. There's a, a hopefulness rather than a hopelessness.
Mm.
There's a sense of possibility rather than impossibility. So the difference between impossibility and what I call impossibility is just one letter, M to N.
Mm.
And the, there's a life where there's possibility compared to a life where there's no possibility. And people don't need to know the difference. They already know the difference intuitively within them. So a lot of what I teach actually is very intuitive. It's just that life has given us experiences which has programmed us to believe the other stuff. When the reality is we can actually experience both. We have that choice.
Mm.
And I've never known somebody to choose feeling crap when they could feel happy. It's strange. We
Mm.
know intuitively that the higher energy is better for us.
Mm. Is there anything else you'd like to add around the concept of energy?
No, we can talk about it all day, but it is all around us, whether we believe in it or not, it's around us. Whether we do anything with it or not, it's around us. It's one of those scientific principles that everything is energy. It's not just this kind of woo-woo shit that some people say. It is a scientific principle, and ironically, it's quite often the people who say that they're fact-based and science-based that oppose it. The very basis of science, everything is energy.
Mm. Thank
I'm
you.
not sure there's anything else to say.
No, I agree.